Water scarcity is set to increase in frequency across Scotland. The severity and implications may depend on your location. However, water availability is predicted to change, and mitigation measures we put in now and subsequent years can make a big difference to your business. So, short-term solutions and mitigation measures for farmers would be to check for leaks in any pipework, perhaps the type of pipework that you're using for irrigation, make sure that your joiners and spacers are correct, the distance that you're perhaps abstracting water from, and just planning appropriately for your water use. Other measures such as monitoring and metering your usage to know how much you're using, speaking to your neighbours, make sure that everyone in the catchment area understands their water usage and how much they require, as well as planning your irrigation needs to your crop type. So if it's cereals, for example, you're probably unlikely to irrigate unless you really have to, but for veg, you're going to do it most likely regardless. You want to look at creating a drought plan. So from all the guidance in the CRU document that's been created, you can look at the different scoring matrix, you can create a drought plan to then assess your needs and what mitigation measures you may want to consider. What you can also do is undertake the drought risk profile card, which all the information and steps are within the CRU guidance document, and that will help create mitigation measures and points to consider within your business. So some measures that farmers can take in the medium term would be their crop choice, so perhaps looking into what crops they wish to grow in rotation. Could also be the irrigation technology or systems that they adopt. So for example, we know that rain guns, although widely adopted, are largely inefficient at times, especially in windy conditions, at placing the water. So we might want to consider things like drip irrigation. Okay, upfront costs are quite high in terms of installation for this type of system, but the water usage is placed exactly where you need it, and it's at a lot less volume in terms of abstraction demand. So it's likely you can continue to use this type of system even when water scarcity becomes more of an issue. Another consideration which applies to each of them, so whether it's short, medium or long term, is improving your soil health. So that's looking at building organic matter and your soil structure, understanding your soil and its water holding capacity and how you can use that to your advantage. Other things that you should consider, again, is speaking to your neighbours along the catchment area. There may be other things that they're doing that perhaps you haven't thought about that you can consider, and vice versa. And lastly, perhaps looking at investments such as on-farm water storage, likes of lagoons and ponds, or even boreholes to a certain extent as well, and how you might be able to access that water. And finally, you can consider some long-term options such as diversification within the business, whether you look at moving from an arable system to a mixed system, for example. You may look at slowing the flow of water around the catchment area and how you might do that with other businesses in the region. You want to try to work with the river rather than against it, or the water course, and try to implement some nature-based solutions into the management plan. If you, for example, have areas of waterlogged fields that happen every year, perhaps don't crop that section. It's about working with the water rather than against it. It's best to break down the short, medium and long-term options into bite-sized chunks, and even if it's just a short-term option that you can try to implement, then that's better than nothing.